Hello, hello. Welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing. This is a show where I chat with business owners and leaders about marketing mistakes, missteps, and things that didn't go quite as planned. But most importantly, we talk about the lessons learned for you to learn from. I am your host. I'm Kristi Mitchell. I'm a marketing strategist, and I love working with mission-driven, client-centered service providers who have relied on referrals and word of mouth to build their business. And they know in order to get to that next level and have a bigger impact, they need to finally think more strategically about their marketing. Today, I am so excited to welcome a fellow marketing expert to the show. Ben Albert is the owner of Balbert Marketing, LLC, founder of the Grow Getters Only Collective, and host of the internationally recognized podcast, Real Business Connections. Through his companies, Ben empowers growth-minded leaders with strategic marketing, podcast production, and community building resources. Once an underdog, now a successful entrepreneur, Ben is passionate about helping others achieve their potential. He is on a mission to move the needle 1 million move the needle on 1 million lives. Love that. One conversation at a time. So with that, I'll welcome Ben to the show.
Yay, excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited to have you. And we were just catching up briefly before we came on here, talking about how long we've known each other and trying to remember how exactly did we meet. So Kim Marie McKernan gets a shout out today for introducing Ben and I so long ago that we actually forgot and had to look it up. Like how did we actually meet? So Kim is fabulous, and I'd love to give her a shout out.
COVID friends.
Yes. Yes, that is true. Kim and I presented at an event together, and I think it ended up having to get moved virtually because of COVID. And we did like these lightning talk things, and I loved her talk, so I reached out to her. And yeah, we have been friends and business colleagues ever since. We've collaborated on a bunch of clients together, as you and I did way back in the day.
Back in the day.
Back in the
Excited to
day.
be collaborating with you again. This is going to be a good time.
I know. I'm so excited for this conversation. And I love that, like, I was on your podcast years ago, and now I have you here on mine. So this is going to be a great conversation. So we had talked about what is a common mistake that you see your clients making in the world of marketing. And I loved your response to me because, unfortunately, I hear it a lot with clients who come to work with me as well. So they have unfortunately worked with other marketing providers that maybe promised them the world, and they got kind of burned by those experiences. So then they wind up in the place of hating marketing, and then they don't do anything at all with it. So where would you like to kick off this conversation today?
You know, it's funny because I'd like to think sometimes I can have a little bit of charisma, but one thing I'm thinking about in the moment is it's so easy to like hire someone who's charismatic and confident, and they know that they can get you to 6-figure months in just a few months if you only follow their system. And they're so great at presenting it to you. And they're so great at closing you on the offer. But it doesn't work for you. And there isn't a tailored approach. Or maybe they were just selling a false bill of goods and it really wasn't that good of a product or a service. And it's easy, honestly, to be persuaded to throw money at a problem and just hope it goes away. And then when it doesn't work, you feel burned and you don't want to market at all. And I think that's a real problem that, like, even me as a marketer, I've never met a business owner that's been in business over a year that hasn't been burned somehow by somebody.
Yes.
And that really
Isn't it?
stinks.
I was just going to say, that sucks, doesn't it? So in the world of marketing, I think I shared with you when we were prepping for this conversation, unfortunately, I've had so many business owners on this show who are not in the world of marketing and have told this story from their side of, I hired someone, it didn't go well, here's why it didn't go well, here's what I learned from it. And I'm curious now that, I have a fellow marketer on the show and we're talking about this topic from a different lens. What are some of the things that maybe through like conversations you've had with people who became clients of yours, what have you kind of teased out in terms of like what didn't go well then and what's going to be different now?
Yeah, the big thing I've found, and AI's made it easier and easier for this to occur, is people like bot. Let's say social media is an example, because if we fine tune, it's easier to explain. They buy
Hmm.
a social media service and they're getting stock photos that if you do a little bit of research, every client in their niche are getting the same photos. So they're
Yep.
an advisor, or they're a roofer, and they're getting the same content as everybody else. Sometimes you just auto post through an automation. Um,
Yeah.
there's no engagement. There's almost like no real purpose. And if anything, it's hurting their algorithm versus helping it. And then, like in the podcast space, some of the worst horror stories I've seen is like, you know, producers basically getting guest names wrong, like spelling a
Hmm.
name wrong, or the episode ends but they don't edit out the after discussion, so it's just poorly edited. It's
Yes.
mistakes
I've
that
seen that.
someone who really, really, really puts their, hands on and pays attention to, no one would really make. But it's the set it or forget it. The client wants a solution to solve a problem. And then the marketer provides a solution that pretends to solve the problem, but maybe even makes it worse.
Yes, and we have to laugh or we would cry. Yes. So I like what you're saying here because I've definitely seen this. And it's a lot of times when I'm coming in to have that conversation with a business owner who's like, I've tried this, it didn't work. I need something because I still can't figure it out on my own. This idea of set it and forget it, or this like templated approach, this one size fits all model, we're just going to go through the same process, cut and paste that we did for our last client. And so I'm curious, are there questions that you think a business owner could ask in the process of interviewing a potential marketing partner? What things should they be looking for or maybe asking during that process that could help them get a better sense for, is this really going to solve the problem I have?
Mm.
Or are they just putting me through the same process and I'm not actually going to get hands on help?
Yeah, that's such an awesome question. For me, I want to see some results. I want to see an actual demo of an actual client. Now, I understand some industries, NDA, I don't know if that's impossible, but in most cases, if you have a kick butt client and you're really excited about your work, you're happy to share it. So if I'm a consumer, I'm either like beta testing and you're giving me a huge discount, or you have past clients that you can show me. So it's almost like not even asking a ton of questions. It's really just let's experience, like, based on what I need, A, B, C, D, and E, show me someone who's
Yes.
had similar problems. Because let's say design, you can see it in the design. If it's something
Mhm.
analytical like paid ads, you can see it in the results. But I just want to see an actual templated example from somebody else. And in a perfect world, like, they'd be willing to, like, maybe create a couple free assets for me or work with me. Or honestly, the what's interesting, I'm kind of thinking out loud here,
Mhm.
is they're the ones that should be asking a lot of questions. When you
Yes.
flipped it and you're like, as a buyer, what questions should you ask? I was like, I don't know. If they're not asking me tons of questions, there's a problem.
Yes.
They should be getting to know me, my needs, my concerns, and then applying what they've learned to that. And if they're not able to do that, if they're just going through like a 10 slide PowerPoint pitch, it's
Mhm.
possible they're not a good fit for me. But it's
Yeah.
almost, I don't need to ask the questions, they do. And if I get a weird
Yeah.
feeling about them, that's okay. We just don't work together.
Yes. Oh my god, I love that point. That's such a great point, that the provider that you're interviewing should be the one asking you
Yeah, I was
questions
like, I don't
because
know what
then
to
that
ask.
right. They should be asking you questions because they should be getting to know you and your unique business and your ideal clients and how can they tailor their approach to make sure that it fits for you and your unique business. I love that.
Yeah.
I really like your point too about show me. Like, take me through a sample client, to your point, if they can, privacy NDA, like that kind of thing. But take me through the process. What does it look like? What kind of results have you achieved for other clients? The other thing I thought of, which this has come up with other guests on the show, especially when they've been in that seat of like they're the ones doing the interviewing, is asking to speak to a client of theirs. Is that something you've had experience with, people who are talking to you about potentially hiring you and them asking you to speak with a client of yours?
I've given referrals, but like
Mhm.
it's actually really uncommon that people follow up and contact the clients.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's so interesting. That
At
has
least
not been my experience.
it hasn't.
No, no. But you know what's funny is not everybody. So I've actually started offering it.
Mm,
I remember I had a prospective client I was in conversation with earlier this year, and when I had asked her, like, because I knew that she was interviewing multiple providers, and I was like, "Well, what's most important to you, and like who you're gonna hire?" And she said, "Trust. Trust was the most important." And so, we went on in our process, and I was like, if trust is the most important, like, would it be helpful to you to talk to one of my clients? And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, it wasn't something she asked for, but I offered it. And then she was like all about it. And it went really great. And now she is a client of mine. But I think that that's something, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if business owners think to ask for it, or to your point, do they actually follow
if
through when the introduction is made?
something that I do that's a little bit different that I think just kind of builds trust naturally. And if you look at two different categories, so there's the community grow getters only. Nowadays, we have 3 free events a month. And we have an inner circle, which is a paid group. However, I give $1 for 30 days, and I'll give someone a guest pass for any particular speaker at any time. I can just boop, there's a guest pass. It's virtual.
Yeah.
So they can either come to a free event, they can come for 30 days for $1, or they can come as a guest. So there's not really much asking that needs to be done. They experience the vibe, they experience the community, and determine if they want to be a part of it long term. And when you look
Yeah.
at like a podcast client, some of them have been a guest on my show. They watch my show. They've been a guest on a client of mine's show. They've already
Hmm.
seen the deliverables. They've already seen the final product. So you're kind of skipping through that trust uncertainty phase just by delivering something really, really good up front, building lots
Yeah.
of value. So I think in my case, there's probably a little less uncertainty that goes on in that category, but it
Yes.
definitely depends on industry. But I think if you can provide an experience that adds way, way, way more value than anyone would ever imagine, even before they hire you, it's
Hmm.
very, very easy to hire you in the long run.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I'm glad we're kind of teasing this out, right? Because for those business owners listening to the show, if they are looking to hire a marketing provider, it's worth thinking through what type of proof or content, like how can you build trust? Because for example, a strategic marketing plan, like I can't show somebody a sample of that. Like that is very, like that's highly proprietary. Like I can't just show you this
Right.
strategy that I built for somebody else. But if you were hiring someone to do social media or graphic design or maybe even like email writing or something like that, it's like you could ask for samples of that to get a sense for like, how does this look? How does this feel? Does it feel customized? Is it kind of cookie cutter and bland? But if you're getting into your point, the podcast thing, right? Like, okay, they can listen to your podcast, they can listen to other people's podcasts that you produce or that they've been on. So there's that kind of like very tangible example of your work. Whereas there's other types of marketing that unfortunately are a little bit harder to like grasp and
Yeah.
like wrap your arms around in terms of like, what does this look like? So maybe that's where the difference comes in terms of how can I gain trust just through showing my work versus maybe gaining trust through talking to a potential client or talking through like a case study and outcomes of that my clients have received.
100%. And you do a good job of this, whether it's like we're putting on a webinar or we produce a podcast for our business or we do some sort of workshop or a group training or we donate our time to charity and go into a church and educate there. Like whatever we choose, it's let's educate first, let's create an empowered buyer, and then they're going to
Mhm.
want to purchase the stuff that's kind of secret in the vault over there, but they
Yeah.
don't know you yet or trust you yet. So it's kind of just educate and add value first. And there's many ways to do it depending on your industry.
Yes, I love that point. You and I are definitely so aligned on that and like providing that value for free so that people can get a sense of who you are as an expert in your space. How do you approach your industry, your expertise? Because there are so many different options out there to evaluate. There was something else I was just going to say on that topic, and now it totally left my brain.
Uh-oh.
Oh, right. As you were talking about that, I was like, oh, I'm going to say this. All right. It might come back to me.
Sure.
But in that vein, I want to share a not super detailed example because I don't want to like throw anybody under the bus here. But I was recently approached with an opportunity to do a collaboration where we could like swap, like I would promote her masterclass, she would promote mine. And one thing that I realized was so she sent me an example of hers. I sent her an example of mine because I'm like, I don't feel comfortable promoting something to my audience unless it's something I
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not just going to like send it out.
Right.
So when I watched hers, I was like, okay, this is interesting. But the entire presentation was about the service she sells. There was nothing in it that somebody could take as a learning that they could apply without hiring her, and buying into the software that she was selling. And I was like, huh, that doesn't sit well with the way that I approach marketing. And I'm not saying it's wrong, it's just different approaches to this topic that you're bringing up. This, how do we show value
Yeah.
and how do we gain that trust and bring people into our world and show them what we're all about?
Yeah. I mean, you could ask me anything. Any prospect, client, friend could ask me anything. And assuming I'm not running out the door busy, I'm going to give you the best answer I have, period. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to be like, oh, I need to write down 5-minute answer that's going to be $20. No, someone asks a question, I'm going to give them 110%, period.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just a way of doing business. Now, scenarios like the one I'm describing, what you fall into is knowing your worth and actually charging for your time, or setting a retainer where you're not just answering everyone's questions for free all day long. But
Yeah.
I have the mindset that if someone asks me a question, I'm going to answer it to my best of my ability, period. And there doesn't have to be a sales pitch at the end.
Yes.
So I would not want to do that collab either. If I do a collab, I want it to be like flooded with value. I want them to be like,
Yes.
wow, if this is the free stuff, imagine what the paid version looks like.
Right. Right. Yes, completely. Completely agree with you there. So if again, because I always try and put myself in the business owner shoes, right? Like the people who are not marketing experts, they are running a business, they are trying to figure out their best path forward on their own marketing efforts.
Yeah.
If they are trying to figure out who to work with, who to hire, what are some of the things that you think that they should be paying attention to? And maybe they're not questions to ask, maybe they're things they should be paying attention to. Like the thing we already talked about, how many questions is that provider asking you? How well are
Mm.
they trying to get to understand you and your business? What else? Are there other things that come to mind?
Well, you want someone who understands you. So that's why the asking questions is so important. Because even if they're not a total expert on Kristi, they're willing to become one. But ideally,
Mhm.
you're hiring someone who's already an expert at exactly what you need. So this is very broad. If we were to narrow it down, can we just like pick an industry or a kind of business or something like
Yes.
that? Because if we
Let's say
narrow it
wealth
down,
managers,
so okay, a wealth manager, and they're
like
hiring.
independent. Yeah.
Okay, got
Independent
it,
RIAs. This is
got
a
it.
space that yes.
And so they're certified. They're an independent, but there's still compliance that they need to.
Yes.
So I
Yep.
fell into this trap. I said yes to a deal that I shouldn't take because I had all the general principles down, but I didn't understand the insurance agency, the industry.
Mm.
So there were compliance things and different things he had to put at the bottom and all this stuff that I did not know. So I should not have taken that deal. That was a mistake I learned from. And if you're in insurance, if you're in wealth management, if you're an advisor, you want someone who understands exactly what you go through with compliance.
Mhm.
You want someone who, once it's sent to compliance, it passes every single time, or at least most of the time.
Yeah.
You ideally want someone who runs a good business that isn't bankrupt. You want someone who's interested in finance,
Yeah.
possibly they're willing to hire you, or they already have a wealth manager. You want to
Mhm.
be working with someone who actually knows the heartbeat of your business.
Yeah.
So that's a good example, because compliance is such a, I'd lose my hair with compliance, but if someone deals with every single day, they know exactly what to do to bring your business to the forefront.
Yes. And I'm curious, especially on this exact example, to get your take on this because I've often been on discovery calls with potential clients where they ask, "Have you worked with somebody in this space?"
Mhm.
And especially, I mean, I've been in business over 6 years now. So, like, I've worked with a much wider variety now than I had, 5 years ago. I don't necessarily think that finding an industry specific provider is a make or break. Like, I don't think that should be a make or break criteria, in my opinion, but totally curious to get your take on that.
No, I agree. And that's why I'm like, even if they're not an expert in Kristi, they want to become one. You
Yes.
need to someone who's going to partner with you on the project.
Mm-hmm.
When you hire an industry specific, this is the whole other side, like the straw man. When you hire an industry specific provider, there's actually a higher probability they're just going to do the set it and forget it that worked for my other 1,000 clients strategy. So
Yes. Yep.
regardless of what you do, you want to hire someone who's willing to be I'm assuming you're paying for someone good. They're going to be
Mm-hmm.
hands-on, and they're going to partner with you on your business, not just treat it as something that they've already figured out 10,000 times. So in some cases, the person that knows nothing about what you do might kick more butt because they're willing to beta test and try everything, but
Yeah.
that's definitely the business owner's discretion. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily wanna hire someone who's just willing to throw anything at the wall, but I
Mm-hmm.
also do wanna hire someone who's willing to try some things and maybe do it a
Yes.
little bit different with me.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that point so much. It's like you could fall into I always think of the bell curve, right? Like there's always like those extremes and then
Mhm.
there's like the middle. So you have on one extreme someone who, does can't say that they are an expert in your space. They have no experience at all in your industry. And then you have the other ones who are like, we only work with wealth managers. That's all we do. And I think there are from what I'm hearing from you, I agree. I think there's kind of challenges on both ends of those spectrums, but if you can find someone maybe in the middle, you get that variety. They've been trying some different things, they've worked with different industries, so maybe they can bring new perspectives and different viewpoints because of those that wider range of experiences of clients they've worked with. They're not solely focused, but again, to your point, they need to ask the questions. They need to be willing to learn, they need to have that curiosity of wanting to tailor what they're doing to you and your business.
Yeah, it's not to toot my own horn, but very short story. I started a music podcast in 2016. Then I started a business podcast in 2020. You've been on it. It was called Rochester Business Connections because I wanted some. I didn't know what I was doing. And I was the podcast guy, but I was selling like websites and different things, websites, social media, all that stuff. And it wasn't until like 2023 that I actually like people smacked me upside the head and they're like, Ben, you should be offering podcast services. I'm like, no, I just podcast for fun. I've been doing it since 2016. I would do it whether or not it paid me. And the reason I give myself as an example is I was a generalist that worked at a digital marketing firm and worked with lots of different clients that just happened to start podcast marketing after years
Mhm.
and years of doing it for fun.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean I'm not still like a generalist marketer that knows a lot of stuff, but I'm applying it to podcasting. In
Right.
most cases, you want that. You want someone who sees the big picture that just happens to be applying it to your niche. They
Yeah.
could do it in 11 different ways, but they love doing it for you. So someone who
Yes.
sees the greater picture that just happened to their love wealth, they know what it felt like being broke. They want to retire by their 50s, so they're working with wealth advisors. But they were
Mhm.
marketing for many, many years prior to that. Those are the kind of
Yeah.
people I like working with above all.
I love that. Love that. Brought it all full circle, I feel like. Okay, Ben, as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, we covered a lot of ground. I think we gave lots of helpful tips for listeners, but is there any last sort of lesson learned or piece of advice that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah. This is big piece of advice, but it's like my favorite saying. I don't think there's a key to success. There's not one single marketing strategy that works in all cases. There's no key to anything, in my opinion. It's a combination lock, and each and everyone has their own unique combination. Who do you serve? What's your surface area? Who are your clients? How are you a differentiator? Who can help you? This is like a lifelong journey in business, but if we can discover our combination, what makes us unique, we can basically destroy any competition and start unlocking anything. But you got to be willing to try new things. You got to be willing to hire a provider. You got to be willing to do some of this analysis and work on your own. And then you come to your provider and say, I've already done X, Y, and Z. Can you help me? But there
Mm.
isn't a key to success in your business. It's a combination lock. So always be learning, always be partnering, get a mentor, get a friend, get peers. And that's the way to succeed in the long term.
Oh my God, I love that. And how have I known you this long and I've never heard that analogy from you? I love it.
It's not in front of me, but I have a keychain that says there is no key.
I love that. Do you give those away with your logo
No,
on them?
that'd be a cool idea. It's just
You
for
should
me.
totally do that.
Yeah,
That
that'd
would
be
be
fun.
awesome
I,
freebie giveaway.
I like that.
That would
Hmm.
so memorable. I love it. I love it. Ben, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, share your wisdom, your expertise, your experiences. So as we wrap up here, I want to give you the opportunity to share how can people learn more about you and the awesome work that you're doing.
I mean, the easiest way, wherever you found this or Google, just type in real business connections. You'll find my podcast. You'll find a little bit about me. And if you want to join the community, and I invite you to come to one of our free events or try the inner circle for a month, weallgrowtogether.com. It's in the name, weallgrowtogether.com. Entrepreneurs, marketing, and sales looking to level up, heart centered people growing together. Lots of free stuff in there. So those would be my two suggestions.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you again so much, Ben, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Kristi.